one of the things that is inextricably tied to the fentanyl scourge in our country is the nation's immigration crisis and the security crisis along our nation's southern border. It is not in dispute that a lot of the fentanyl that is killing people on our streets and in our communities is coming into the United States from Mexico. And there are concerns right now that that crisis is about to get a lot worse. Thank you to the founding sponsor of Undivided, 1530 Mortgage. Visit them at 1530mortgage.com. Undivided contributor Ali Bradley, who has spent a lot of time down at the southern border covering the immigration crisis and the crime crisis that has resulted from it, has more on the end of Title 42.
It's a dangerous choice to make. Crossing the swift Rio Grande into the United States.
It just blows your mind what people are willing to do and things that they have to go through.
No say?
At least 19 migrant bodies had been pulled from the Rio in the Eagle Pass area in April alone. A Texas National Guard soldier is the latest casualty at the border. The Texas Military Department reports that the two migrants the soldier jumped in the river to help were involved in illicit transnational narcotics trafficking. They remain in federal custody.
This administration completely walked away from border security. There's no conversation at all about how to slow the flow, how to secure the border. It's not even allowed.
Meanwhile, law enforcement across the southern border are preparing for the end of Title 42, the health code put into place by the CDC in 2020.
The system's still going to be overloaded. People are still going to be required to wait just because of the sheer numbers. So there's still going to be a humanitarian situation going on.
A leaked draft of the Department of Homeland Security's contingency plan lays out how the government is considering handling an influx of what's expected to be 18,000 migrants a day crossing into the United States. Now, the plan shows that the administration is planning for limited removal and releases on a broader scale.
The immigration office, they're telling them and they explain them, and each one is different, like I say, but sometimes they don't care.
People say take the right pathway, follow the rules, but if you get in these lines can stretch for decades, and then right at the finish line there's always something that happens that pulls the rug right out from someone's case. So when you tell someone to get in a line, there really needs to be a line there for them to get in.
21 states are suing the Biden administration over the plan to lift Title 42, claiming a clear plan is not in place.
They're arresting between 5,000 and 8,000 people a day. Under Title 42, a good chunk of those only take about 5 minutes or so to process, 90 minutes to get out of the country. But the other half of those takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours if they speak Spanish.
Now, this isn't the only stand being taken on a state level, despite immigration being a federal issue.
Deploying boat blockades.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott expanded Operation Lone Star once again, adding razor wire along the river, doing extensive checks on commercial vehicles at checkpoints, and even sending at least 10 buses carrying migrants to Washington, D.C.
When you get to the border and you make a claim for asylum, you're following a legal pathway. This is the laws that we have here in the United States. And so when people come to the border and they ask asylum, they're doing what the law allows. And so when people say, oh, they should wait in some other line because this is not the right way, that's not correct in my view.
Asylum seekers, literally, if they're going to surrender, would not choose to cross the middle of the desert at 1 a.m. They wouldn't cross the Rio Grande at 2 a.m. or even after dark. It's because they're crossing then because it's being controlled by the cartels. The cartels are pushing these massive numbers of people over so that they can smuggle anything they want in the huge border gaps behind it.
Governor Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey created what's being called the American Governor's Border Strike Force to combat organized crime, something that could be critical should there be a surge in cartel activity, a scenario DHS is preparing for.
If this administration wants to have a 2,000-mile wide port of entry where there's no difference, there's no incentive to come through the front door, then they need to push the asylum officers, they need to push the immigration processing people, the admin people down to the border to do their job and get Border Patrol agents and CBP officers back protecting America. Because their fundamental job is to know who and what is entering this country, not to adjudicate it after the fact.
Ali Bradley, thanks for joining us. Thanks for that report. Before we came on with you today, I was telling this story about this mom who lost her child to a fentanyl overdose. We were talking with Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers about what they're trying to do to tackle that issue. And this just seems like the crisis at the southern border, and we know a lot of fentanyl is coming up from the southern border. It seems like this problem is going to get worse, not better.
And Brandi, I think that's a very fair statement to make. I mean, we're hearing from a lot of lawmakers right now directly saying that every state is going to become, if they are not already, a border state because of the illicit drugs that we're seeing coming in. I mean, in that report, you heard me say that a National Guard trooper, a soldier, jumped in the water to save 2 migrants who were actually tied to illicit drug trafficking. And some of the other migrants made it back over to Mexico with those drugs. And they're going to try again, and the reason why they're going to keep trying, and the reason why they're even trying in the first place, is because they can, Brandi, because they're having a success rate getting in. And the reason that's happening is because not only are we short staffed along the border right now, not only did the administration already remove some of the DHS employees, CBP, Border Patrol, ICE agents. We've seen a reduction in that, but we've also had staffing shortages in DHS. So we've also seen less Border Patrol agents signing up to do that job. So not only are there less in the field because they're inside processing, but they're not getting more people to do this job. They've sent out an email several times, Brandi, asking for people to join the volunteer force. That's something coming directly from DHS. They're asking for volunteers right now to go do the processing side, basically, to go help with the logistical side. But, those volunteers aren't going to actually be able to do the paperwork. It's still going to fall on the Border Patrol agents. When we saw Del Rio, 14,000, 15,000 people under that bridge, that meant we had 190 miles of unmanned border. People don't understand what an unmanned border means. It does not mean that there's not people there stopping the families from coming over. It means that there are not people there stopping the coyotes, the cartel, the people from smuggling drugs and from smuggling humans into our country. That's what they're not able to stop.
See, I just for the sake of moral consistency and ideological consistency, I don't have an issue with Title 42 ending because it's tied to the pandemic. And the pandemic, I think, is over. It's the same reason I don't believe we should be in a state of emergency around the pandemic in Washington state. And I've railed against that. So Title 42, yeah, I mean, I don't think that we should be stopping people from coming into the country on the basis of a crisis that doesn't exist, a health crisis that doesn't exist very much anymore.
Well, and that's the argument I've kind of made too, is you can't, on the Republican side, they want to get rid of pandemic era restrictions, mandates, mask mandates, but then they want to keep Title 42. You just can't have both, right?
No.
They need another policy. Yes. And that is the crux of a lot of these lawsuits and conversations that are happening, Brandi, is they do want a better policy in place, but there isn't one. So that's the push, right? They're saying keep it because you don't have another policy. This isn't a surprise. I've been down there covering this for 8 months. This has been a foreshadowing. We have known this is coming. We have known these caravans are moving. They have intel down there. They can see it all happening. When Del Rio happened, I've seen the graphics. They knew exactly where all of those people were. They just reacted. They weren't proactive. And that's what we're going to see again here. But the difference is right now, again, we're looking at these known gotaways. I don't know if you've heard the numbers. We're looking at over 300,000 known gotaways in the last fiscal year. Now, a gotaway is somebody who has been seen on a camera, who has been seen by an agent, maybe in a bailout. Maybe they stopped somebody and all 8 of them ran and only 1 of them got caught. Those other 7 would be known gotaways. What's wild though, Brandi, is that number is, you can never really know. But border agents always say for every 1 person that we catch, 2 get by us. So they're very confident that number is at least being kind about it is at least double, and every agent you'll talk to and every DPS officer that you talk to will say the same. And that's a scary number, right? Because those are the ones that don't want to get caught. Those are not the family members, my friends, that are coming in and self-surrendering to claim asylum. Those are the people evading law enforcement. Those are the people walking through the desert with carpet on their shoes so that they hide their tracks. It's what people aren't understanding. They're fixating on the families. Everybody agrees that people deserve an opportunity if they have a valid asylum claim, that legal immigration needs to be a clear pathway in our country. Everybody that I've talked to just about agrees with that. But the problem is we're not grasping what the reality is right now. It is not just family units down there. We are seeing that self-surrendering, but that is not what they're finding in the mountains. And that is not what they're finding on ranch lands.
Right, because as you've said on the show before, if someone is coming across because they're fleeing something that would qualify for asylum, they would do so at a port of entry or somewhere where they would self-surrender to border agents. They wouldn't sneak across the desert in the middle of the night. They would take their legal asylum claim somewhere where it can be heard. I'm curious, you obtained this document that talks about DHS's very real concern concerns about what the end of Title 42 is going to mean for some of this illicit cartel activity. And it's interesting because the Biden administration has tried, and I know there's some political reasons, to downplay the situation at the southern border. But then you've got this document where DHS is like, yeah, we're really concerned about, and we're playing out all these scenarios. So it seems like that document would undercut any ability of the Biden administration to play down this concern.
I mean, I think that you're right there, Brandi, but if you look through the 115 pages of that document, it very clearly lays out what their ideas are, and it doesn't really refer to what's going on down there as much of a crisis as it really is. And even the immigration attorney that I talked to, he's like, this has been ongoing. It's a, is it a problem? Yeah, but everybody's kind of downplaying it right now because they're not seeing it for themselves. They're not experiencing it. They're not losing their life to save people. They're not out there, giving CPR. These medics are giving CPR to 1-year-olds, Brandi, because we are seeing so many drownings and nobody's talking about it. Nobody is saying anything, on one side of the country is saying anything about this at the southern border. And I still cannot wrap my head around how this is a political issue, how these people's lives are a political football, and the pendulum just keeps going back and forth to this drastic changes. Mm-hmm. It's never going to work, and when we talk about these asylum seekers, why are we waiting until Title 42? Why are people waiting? If they have a valid claim, why are they waiting? That's the other thing I can't really wrap my head around. There's no other way to look at it other than cartel and coyotes are running the show over there. Because if these folks genuinely are fleeing persecution, we got the door open. Why are you waiting until May 23rd? You don't need to. So it's interesting because we know there are hundreds of thousands of people in Mexico waiting, migrating up here. Why are you waiting if you have a valid claim? That's something that needs to be asked more.
Yeah. And like you said, and this is what we talk about a lot on the show, it's all this, everything's black and white. People are all talking about the families, or they're only talking about the cartel. And for some reason, we're completely unable as a society to talk about the nuance of the issue and how complicated it is. And I don't know. I don't think I'll ever understand that. Let's end with this. I want to ask you one question about maybe performative politics, which, I abhor. Greg Abbott sending the bus full of migrants to Washington, D.C. Why? What is he hoping to accomplish there?
I will say this, having the front row seat that I've had, it is a bit of what you would call grandstanding, I think. But here's the thing. Greg Abbott has been beating his chest, right, for over a year. He's been declaring a state of emergency. He's been pushing on the Biden administration to act. He's been doing things. He's been very vocal since I've been covering the border, which has been since August. And so, for somebody to go, what, we're going to take a stand and do something. Okay, he got attention, but I'm going to say this. Was it the right attention? Because he's literally doing what everyone in America is mad about the NGOs doing, paying for free bus tickets and plane tickets to the interior of our country with taxpayer dollars. It's exactly what he just did. So did he get attention? Yes. But he literally did what people are mad about and made it look like a good thing, like a show for them. Like, I'm acting now on this. So do I think that it did something? Yes, because, you've seen the governor's, strike force has now been created. They're all stepping up because they can't get federal help, even though the feds insist that it is a federal issue. And so it's really interesting because I don't, when he first did it, I was like, whoa. And I think most of the country was like, whoa, what? And I think that's what he wanted. Mm-hmm. But, 10 buses it's a show, right? And it's a show of force. We've seen, him expand Operation Lone Star again. We have the shipping containers along the river, which there's porous, there are gaps everywhere there, and it's like, are we doing this every day? Or is it just when the media is there, or just when a surge is there? Are we preventing or just reacting, And so I don't know. I'm working to get back down there as soon as possible so I can see what really is transpiring every single day. Or are we just really reacting and showing up when it suits us, to show up?
Yeah, I get what he's going for, things if they're out of sight, out of mind, and you want to put it right on Congress's doorstep. So I understand that, but you're right. I think it's so easy to dismiss something like that as just, a Republican being performative, and then it just drives the two sides further apart.
Well,
So
and what's weird is, before I let you go here, what's weird, and I'll send you this, is the NGO in Del Rio, which was where the buses were really coming from in the beginning. They had put out a post saying, we're so glad that the Texas Military Department was here and that they ushered these buses and that we were able to get a free transport. And that's, that didn't work. If that's what he's going for. If he was going for a system of deterrence, that didn't work.
No, yeah. Free to them, not free to us. So Allie Bradley, great work down at the border as always. And I look forward to, you've been breaking national stories. I know President Biden has been asked about some of the stories you've broke in the briefing room in Jen Psaki. So keep it up. All right.
Yeah, there's a lawsuit with my stuff involved. So we'll see where that goes, and I'll keep you posted on that.
All right, Allie Bradley, thanks so much.
Thanks.
If you like videos like this, make sure to become an undivided subscriber on Patreon or Locals. By doing so, you are helping spread this movement to give common sense a comeback. That's patreon.com/undivided or brandykruse.locals.com.